What's poppin', y'all? We're finally getting some engaging music conversation. I can't tell you how excited I am about this, but we're going to cover Rick Ross. So Rick Ross dropped his album Set in Stone. This is the first Rick Ross album in 5 years. He did one with Meek Mill, but we're talking solo album. This is the first one. And the first thing that was reported was the following. Rick Ross' new album, Set in Stone, earned 1.83 million streams in its opening day on Spotify. The top stream track was Livin' Large. And I quote tweeted this and I said, betraying Drake and selling dust is crazy. And we didn't get the full story or the truth. We got the stories, but we didn't get the truth about why Rick Ross infamously separated and dunked on Drake after the long-standing relationship they had, the long-standing collaborations that they have had, the success that they've had, and them both being huge fans of each other and each other's writing. Rick Ross said it was something about not clearing a song for French Montana, but French Montana never complained about Drake. He never jumped on the bandwagon to hate on Drake. He just stood up and just stayed out of the whole entire situation either, which French Montana is a really great example of somebody that is able to keep relationships with damn near everybody. And you never hear anybody say anything bad about him either. So it seems like a solid, stand-up, loyal guy. But this was just the first day. And what started to gain traction? Oh, Rick Ross is flopping after the first day, after you see these numbers. However, Rick Ross's team, they did a very, very excellent job. Now, this is what makes me think that the initial tweet from Hip Hop All Day, it might have been a paid tweet because we've been hearing about hate campaigns for the past couple of months. I think Academics was the first to bring note to it, where he said he had evidence that there were people paying for posts to make an artist look bad. I don't know why, but I don't think he was talking about it in regards to Drake. It might have been in regards to Playboi Carti. But his team would recover and they would run some excellent promo, which is Rick Ross Set in Stone has officially reached the number 1 spot on the US iTunes hip hop R&B charts. So let me just tell you about something about these charts. It is one of the most meaningless things you could possibly be number 1 on, because number 1, no pun intended, if I were to ask you, yo, go buy this album on iTunes, you'd struggle, you'd fumble. If I said, gun to your head, you've got 5 minutes to buy an album on iTunes, you're donezo. It's like if somebody asks you, yo, name 5 DDG songs. I can name 5 DDG songs. I've built that up. I had to practice that muscle. I could do that. I would survive. You would be donezo. Oh, if they asked me about the iTunes thing, I'd be donezo as well. So we'd both be upstairs, hopefully in heaven, chilling and looking at each other like, damn, we ain't got it like that. Nobody knows how the hell to get on iTunes. But iTunes, you can only buy albums. So if you go on iTunes, you can get number 1 on iTunes probably with less than 100 albums bought. Maybe less than 500 for sure. And what's $500? Let's just say 500, the album's 5,000. That's about 10 bucks an album. So you spend $5,000 to now be able to promote that he's number 1. So this offsets the previous, he only did 1.83 million streams on Spotify, mind you. And the song off the album that he did the highest streams on Spotify was the one with Big X the Plug. Keep in mind, this didn't have any music video to it, so I don't think it's the one that they intended to be doing the best. Otherwise, they would have put a music video behind it. Like they had music videos for Minx in Miami, which was with French Montana and Max B. I don't know if I think that song released a while back. You had Mahogany Caskets with T.I. that had a music video to it, and also Ring Around the Rolls with YFN Lucci. That had a music video to it. But the Big X the Plug song didn't. However, it's understandable why the Big X the Plug song would do the best, because Big X the Plug is huge on Spotify. I mean, most of us discovered Big X the Plug. Me personally, I can speak for myself. I discovered Big X the Plug as an autoplay on Spotify. That was and this is why I have so much love and admiration for the music making of Big X the Plug, because how often is it that you just hear somebody's music and that's enough to make you a supporter of them and listen to more of their stuff and figure out more about them? It had nothing to do with his image, nothing. Although that does help the whole theme of everything. So it makes sense that Big X the Plug would be the biggest song on Spotify because he has a huge Spotify presence. So like I said, they get to promote for $5,000, swipe a couple of credit cards, buy a couple of iTunes albums. Now you get to promote that it's number 1. and we would get the final sales for Rick Ross. And Rick Ross's final sales would be the following. He would sell 17K first week with 2,000 pure album sales, which is people buying the album, whether that was a physical sale, whether that was a vinyl sale, whether that was a CD sale, or whether that was an iTunes sale. And the streaming equivalent albums is about 15K. Let's just round it up to 15K. So 15K streaming equivalent is a lot. That's about like 1,500 for one album sale. That's about 22 million streams that you would need in a week. So that's a big number, 22 million streams in a week. And if you look at Spotify, that's not really close to those numbers. If you add up the numbers, I think it's for sure less than 5 million. If I were to guess, I'm looking at the numbers right now, but I don't want to do the math of 19 tracks. And I don't know which tracks released before, but Apple Music is a different story. And Rick Ross is one of the, like, for example, US based artists. Most of their listeners are on Apple Music. Apple Music released their numbers for their most streamed artists. And you know what the numbers look like? So this was published as the 10-year anniversary of Apple Music, and they showed their 10 most streamed artists of all time as of June 2026. And it was Drake, Taylor Swift. Well, it came out in 2015, but they haven't released a new one. So Drake was number 1. Then it was Taylor Swift. Then it was Future at number 3. And then it was YoungBoy at number 4. And then Bad Bunny, Lil Baby at number 6. And then you've got The Weeknd, Morgan Wallen. But the point here is you've got a Lil Baby, you've got a YoungBoy, you've got a Future in the top 6. You're not getting that on Spotify. Guaranteed you're not getting that. These aren't even, and this is the thing, you can look it up right now. You can look up where Future ranks on Spotify. Future ranks, he's not even ranked right now. He's not even, well, actually he is ranked. He's number 57 in the world. So overall, over 10 years, Future was number 3 on Apple Music versus right now, he's number 57 on Spotify. That's currently. Now, if you take Spotify over 10 years, I don't think he'd be number 57. I think he'd be far off of outside of number 100 most likely. So that just goes to show that the listener base on Apple Music is different. And I'm inclined to believe that a lot of the numbers for Rick Ross's album came from Apple Music. The point here is, though, that people still were hating on the 17K and saying that's a flop. And I'm looking at it like, what the hell? What's going on? Ebro being one of those people.
Right now, are you saying that the algorithm is against Rick Ross? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I would say so.
And so that, and you're saying that because he talked about Drake, the algorithm is against
it.
And
it because he talked about a lot of things that just weren't geared towards the project as it should have been.
Why are you smiling, Nick?
Am I bugging?
Man. Why is the algorithm in Drake being brought up, man?
It's real though.
It feels
it's a thing. It's a real thing. Even like when he went to the Joe Budden podcast this past week, that was a thing that got clipped.
I think people are watching Rick Ross to hear what he's gonna say about Drake, but a lot of the clips that I've seen aren't really talking about Drake.
And I have a lot to say about this, but I tweeted out the following, and I said I really hate this whole algorithm blaming. So Ebro chooses this nebulous term, algorithm, which is nothing more than a reflection of people's current thoughts and feelings. That's what the algorithm is. Whatever people are engaging with, liking, want to see more of, that's what's going to come to the top. There isn't some button that's being pushed. The internet is a reflection of reality now. They're intertwined. There's no separation of what's going on in the internet and what's happening in real life. 10 years ago, if somebody were really popular, I don't know, let's talk about internet figures. Supreme Patty, right? Like or Boonk. Your mom didn't hear about Boonk. Your grandma didn't hear about Boonk. However, with a clavicular, for instance, you see clavicular on your feed, and then your mom's asking you about clavicular because she saw him on some web show or something because he's so viral that now people one level above him are talking about him. And then your grandpa or your grandma has heard about clavicular because somebody on television was referring to him. And so everybody's hearing about everybody now. Versus like these micro niche celebrities, they've become a huge thing. But that is the theme that they're ilk. And by ilk, I mean like these, let's just call them institutional media. So they've been trying to push this for several months, including but not limited to Charlemagne and anything Jay-Z related. So this whole internet versus reality, yo, the internet met reality, yo, in reality, people are actually fans of Jay-Z. Nobody said people weren't fans of Jay-Z. Nobody said he couldn't sell out stadiums. But they're just trying to push that narrative out there. And I said this would have worked in 2018 and it would have been accurate. Like I gave you the Supreme Patty or Boonk situation. Like there was a clear and separate difference between internet and real life. And the algorithm hadn't advanced that far, and short form content hadn't gotten that big either. Now, short form content, you have people scrolling on every single platform. So there's a lot more opportunity for them to come across things that they wouldn't have before, like a long form YouTube video. And that's mostly like kids, young teens that were watching all of that stuff. And most of the people involved in this are able to hide their numbers behind a shroud of mystery. We don't need to get into that actually, because we're focused specifically on Rick Ross here. So when Ebro was talking about, oh, the algorithm is listen, it's people. That's what it is. People right now are not messing with Rick Ross. That's all there is to it. And I would explain this by saying Rick Ross did not flop. When I look at Rick Ross doing 17K first week, streaming 15K, that's not a flop to me. That's solid numbers. I say he did adequate numbers for his current level of popularity. His first day streams were a nightmare on Spotify, mind you, so that didn't calculate all of his streams. But they did excellent promo the rest of the week, like I demonstrated earlier. That was a great promo move by them. Nobody's going to care that, and nobody's really going to think about, oh, well, that's actually iTunes and they could have just bought it on. Nobody's thinking that. They're like, oh, shoot, he's number one. He's popping. Oh, I've heard Rick Ross. He hasn't dropped an album in a while. Let me go check it out. And it's doing what it's supposed to do. 17K first week is solid. And this is without talking about how many were likely bought, pure sales versus streaming, which the ratio is not that bad, but I believe the credit card got brought out for those iTunes purchases. His last solo album, Richer Than I Ever Been, sold 30K first week. That was 5 years ago. 30K, 5 years ago. If he did 30K today, they would have called that a flop as well. Guaranteed. And everybody's album sales have had a steep decline since 2020, 2021. Lil Uzi Vert, for example, Eternal Atake in 2020 did nearly 300K first week. Eternal Atake in 2024 did about 60K. Uzi drops again, I don't think he's doing 100K. Rick Ross and Meek Mill's joint project, Too Good To Be True, in 2023 did 31K, and nobody called that a flop back then. And the thing is, people don't like Rick Ross right now because Drake is back on top. So no matter what Ross did, numbers-wise, they would have dunked on him and called it a flop. Unless he did like 100K plus, something undeniable. And it's just like this round number that, I don't know, signifies that somebody did really well. Although, like, what's really the difference between 80K and 100K? Like, 80K is still outstanding for Rick Ross. And point me to somebody doing 100K in the past 2 years that has had a career for over 20 years. Like, Port of Miami dropped, 2007? And Rick Ross was already in the game and didn't have a hit song to go with this. So there wasn't a hit circulating. Like T.I., he recently had a hit before he dropped. And the only person I can think of is Ye. Ye is the only one that can come out, drop an album like Bully, do over 100K, and it's partially independent or like distribution deal. Same thing that Rick Ross is doing right now. He's not on a major. And the unfortunate part right now is that there is currently a hate wave. That's what it is. It's not the heat wave, or it's similar to a heat wave. Like New Yorkers, you guys were suffering most recently. It's crazy heat wave. That's the hate wave that's befalling Rick Ross right now. Because as we participate, and well, I wouldn't say we're hating on Rick Ross, right? Because like I said, or if you've been here for a while, you know Rick Ross is a rapper whose catalog I love. I love Rick Ross's music. I think he's one of the best rappers in the game that doesn't get enough credit for how much good music he's put out and how good his pen is. So I like Rick Ross's music, but we will laugh at Rick Ross when it comes time to laugh at him. Like when he talks about like, yo, we had my jet needed to get Starlink on it. Or, oh no, we're seeing Rick Ross in commercial. If Rick Ross was spotted in commercial 4 years ago, I don't even think people would have taken a photo of it. I don't think people would have posted it. I don't think it would have gone as big as it did. But the fact that there's a hate wave now, which is induced by Rick Ross himself because he went against Drake, then anything that Rick Ross does, it will get hate on top of it. And Rick Ross is not going to kowtow and get on his knees and beg for forgiveness, which he shouldn't, because they will just dig into you even further. But it's like what happened when there was a hate wave on Drake. When there was a hate wave on Drake, I'm here listening to the music. I'm listening to No Face. I'm listening to Circadian Rhythm. I'm like, man, this is amazing. I'm listening to Some Sexy Songs for You as a huge Party Next Door supporter and lover of his music. And I'm like, man, these joints are tough. This is fire. And I go online and people are clowning this. And they're saying this is trash and this is whack. And I've got enough of a strong enough mind, right? Where I'm like, yo, these people are tripping. But other people, they hopped on the train and it was a hate wave. And anything that Drake did, and they were calling Drake's album with Party Next Door flopping for doing like 250K. So it doesn't matter. When there's a hate wave, you cannot do anything about it. You just got to keep pushing through and keep going. Rick Ross, he was hopping on the hate wave. So now it's just turned back towards him. And all he can do is keep it pushing. Eventually, it will fade. But that's the only thing that's going on right now. And you look at every single Drake fan account or Drake stan account, these people are perpetrating whatever they can to make Rick Ross look bad. And this is where things get conspiratorial, because people that don't like Drake, they'll say, nah, Drake's tapping into these accounts and telling them to make Rick Ross look bad. I don't think that's it. I just think that they like Drake and they can make Rick Ross look bad to get more engagement, because like I said, there's a hate wave on Rick Ross right now. So now that there's a hate wave, they get more engagement by making Rick Ross look bad, making his album release look bad, clowning him for flopping. Anything that he does, he's under a microscope, which is what Drake had to do. So now they're looking at it like, yo, it's time for vengeance because Drake's back on top. It's positive around him. If you hate on Drake, the engagement's not there. He dropped too much good music. Like the people that hate on Drake, they're under the creaks of the floor right now. Like they're just hiding. You can see them, like you're walking by, you see like a little crack of sunlight come through the blinds, and then you see an eye down there in the basement or up there in the attic. That's where the Drake haters are. You don't see tweets used to bang about Drake hating or about hating Drake. Now that's not the case. So Rick Ross, he's under fire for that right now. Kendrick Lamar is not going to suffer from this. I don't think so. He's just doing his own thing right now, which I think is good. It'll be nice to see his next move. But that's all there is to it. These numbers are not bad for Rick Ross. Do not if you're an objective, just listener, consumer of the music. I've listened to a couple of these songs. I do like the song with Big X the Plug. I like Big X the Plug. And I also like Maybach Music 7. Jeezy and Don Toliver on a track. That's also, Don Toliver is on a roll this year. I love everything Don Toliver's been doing since that project that he did with like the bikes, like the biker theme. Don Toliver's been on such a freaking roll. We need to give this guy more credit. This guy's a machine. He's hopping on every feature. When people are talking about like, yo, Wayne, Lil Wayne type runs, I don't want to call this that, because, like when we talk about Lil Wayne, you've got to be delicate around me, okay? I get very emotional when we talk about Lil Wayne. But this is up there with a run. Like this guy's killing features. He's killing his own songs with hits. He's dropping. He hopped on like the songs on Yeat's album. This guy's just doing it all nonstop. He's killing the performances on tour. Whatever Travis Scott's got coming out, he's involved with that somehow. This guy is the modern day superstar when it comes to rap. He's killing it right now. He's killing it more than Lil Baby. Like Don Toliver's past Lil Baby. Although Lil Baby does have a hit song right now. I like that song. Now, I'm not just saying it's a hit because of the numbers, but I enjoy the song. It's a really great song. So I'm deviating. I left Rick Ross 2 minutes ago. I think that's my time. It's my time to, close the curtains and see you guys in the next one. Yeah, let me know what y'all think in the comments, and I'll see y'all later.